Yeah, so anyone who hasn't worked it out yet, so the managing director was effectively destroyed by the letter before action. So the letter contained a famous case of a young lad who died within the city because he was subject to what by any sense is racist bullying by, I think it was probably going to be Asian lads at a school, actually not far from where me and my family lived. So I was quite lucky in life, as you may expect, for someone surrounded by this kind of stuff. And if subjected to violence, well, I got to go home to a criminal defence solicitor's home, which was effectively a fortress. So you don't criminal defence solicitors' homes are again generally like vampires' lairs. People are generally frightened to go into them, so they're quite a good place if you're a child to run to for safety. But if you are from a poor and disadvantaged background, well, you may have trouble. And of course, if you're a child and your parents haven't got the money to look after you and are dumping you off into a Birmingham supposed someone supposed to care for you, and they don't, then your life as a child is going to be a living hell, as mine was, I assure you, in that city when I was younger. And unfortunately, he didn't have the resources I had and took his own life. But the letter to the managing director, aside from that awful case, contains effectively a way to force her to be honest. So the idea of a naturalist Nuke was come up with by the philosopher who goes by the moniker of King Crocoduck. So he backs the postmodernists into the corner and effectively comes up with a strategy to make them be honest. But of course that would make them be honest about biology, which they can't. Therefore, by any simple logic, they are incompetent and sort of these apparatchik characters, and we could take them out. So the Nuke that went into this woman's brain used his work. But to be fair, since we are in Britain, not America, we refer to Scruton, of course, internally repeatedly. But in terms of her education, we could turn it into a Scrutonian Nuke. So Scruton, if you want to get into philosophy, this is not actually a good book to start with, but it'll give you if you're interested in philosophy, it'll give you lots of thinkers, but it'll give you thinkers in sequence. Of course, humans didn't always think the way we do now. It goes from obviously early Christian forms to effectively the Enlightenment, etc. But of course, that's based together with various thinkers at various stages that affects how people in the modern world behave. The modern monkey behaves based on the history of philosophy because that's how our society's evolved. But we can't do a Scrutonian Nuke within Birmingham because you'd have to have someone teach philosophy. The whole point was they chased Scruton out of his life effectively via menacing him. They said, "Oh dear, we have to get him back in because he's too highly educated. We have no one else to teach it because obviously the more you know, the better you are at philosophy, the more well, it pays well for a reason. But to teach Helen Pluckrose's course in Birmingham would now be logically impossible because we put it into corporate communications in 2020 and assistant director's files, but never got released. So Helen could not teach her course in Birmingham. That's the sort of thing a Scrutonian weapon would do. So the thought just charges the blade. Again, they look at this and just see it as a piece of steel and don't know what it is. Clearly it's a threat, but the threat is the legal process, isn't it? So the sword goes through this thing because it's just a demon. It's just saying equity, 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 ding, 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 equity, 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 because of Maoist strategy. So we defer back to Nian Cheng. So this is why Maoist strategies are dangerous. The first wave into Birmingham, we caught a few activists causing trouble with corporate communications. They get flushed out. But of course, the people who want to build a life leave because they're not going to be robbed. Then things get worse. There's less about. Next wave comes and more people are looted and attacked. So when the managing director is using the corporate communications of a British public body to or go into Birmingham University to do her theatre performance, ladies, equity, 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 ding, ding, ding. We can catch her via the technology because we're more intelligent than she is. We're more honest, we're more capable, and she gets stuff like this coming through at her every day via her court officers, and all they can do is panic and misbehave and tell lies and refuse to walk down to a solicitor's office building. that still oversees criminal law matters within the city and various other matters. And they clearly haven't physically gone down and done it, because if they had, I mean, presumably that would affect McGrath and Co's insurance, that kind of stuff. You've got former families saying, well, can you do me a referral up to Scotland, and we can't get one back. Well, they haven't gone down. And of course, given the nature of what's in the bag, you've got to think about evidence standards, can't you? So I can't sort of casually walk into an office and drop this off with them. We need to go and have a discussion in Central Edinburgh about what this contains and get a proper data handoff, don't we? So if Birmingham has demonstrated that the department is full of predators via years of recordings, and clearly it's not going to these people, is it? This is not going to Jennifer Southall or David Fern or Helen Best or Diane Jones or Tracy Halsey, because all these people are criminals. There should be an immediate audit and investigation into the running of the departments, and we will do that from Scotland. You can't have court service managers calling someone who's got away after a stabbing, saying stuff like, "Can I be your friend?" Well, no, we need to actually resolve legal matters appropriately, and that involves an intermediary in the department, so you can make sure things are recorded properly, as you've been told to by law by another agent of the state who's come into your offices to write a report saying this is the case, but you've ignored it because you don't care and you don't know what you're doing. So you can't oversee vulnerable population groups if you don't know what you're doing, right? Because you're going to hurt them. So when I'm saying Birmingham's court service from a wide-angle lens and with protection cannot run, it cannot run. So someone within the department can sit down with an intermediary and tell me how, reasonably, we could do legal housing enforcement in that, right? So can do it, but you need a new team, right?